Hello, I'm Robert, and I want to welcome you back to our painting sessions. Today we'll do another Bob Ross painting. I think with Bob using Bob Ross materials, we're going to add a little bit extra to our thought process on this painting. As Bob would always say, he's just giving us the basic, and then he wants us to follow through on adding our own touches to it. So let me show you what I've got over here. I'm going to take my little guy down. And we'll just see what we can do here. So first thing I wanted to tell you was I have on this canvas, I have a 16 by 20 inch canvas. It's double primed, and on top of that, to save a little bit of time, I have placed liquid white on it. Very, very thin coat of liquid white. Back and forth, little X's, smoothing it across. It's very, very thin. If you have too much on here, your paints are going to be too creamy and they're going to flow too much. So a way to test that is if you touch your finger and you can see your fingerprint in there, that's just right. If you can't see your fingerprint in there, then you've got too much in there and you'll need to wipe it either with a paper towel and then brush it out with your brush. But you've got to get it off because you don't want it too thick on here. So very, very thin coat of liquid white. This is our lubricant for our paints. Before I did that, I put a little bit of tape around here, just some masking tape, so it frames it at the end. You don't have to do this. I kind of like to do this. I like to see it framed in at the end on the canvas. If you're going to put it in a frame anyway, it may not make sense, or it still may make some sense to have a little bit of a white border around it. Anyway, if you want that, put some tape around it before you put the magic white on it. So I have that. It's ready to go. Let me show you the colors that we'll be using today. I have some titanium white. That's my first color here. Titanium white. I've spread it out with a palette knife. Cleaned the palette knife off and went into the next color, of course. I've got a mix here of Indian yellow and bright red. So it makes a nice blended color for this is the upper part of the sky. And here I have a mixture of green, phthalo green with alizarin crimson. Oh, I'm sorry, that's over here. This is just the green over here, phthalo green. This is sap green. This is my mixture of phthalo green and alizarin crimson. This gives us kind of a gray color. That's going to be my second most important color in the sky. And then I have some phthalo blue over here. So those are the colors we will be using today. So in addition to that, our brushes that we'll be using will be our fan brush, our 1 or 2 inch flat brush, of course the palette knife, and I don't think we use a liner brush, but maybe this rounded brush, we might use a rounded brush. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily need that, but basically our 1 inch brush and our fan brush are going to be, the fan brush is going to be key for the sky. This is going to be mostly sky. Then we're going to come down and we're going to put a little bit of a landscape, maybe a mountain and some shrubbery and trees around at the lower part, but mostly a lot of clouds that we have in the sky. So our first step on this, as I said, you can either paint along with your paints or grab a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee, sit back and then watch and enjoy as we begin this painting. So I'm going to start off with my first mix, which is my Indian yellow and red combination. So I'm going to just tap in here. I just want a little bit of color, just a little bit of color at the end. Tap, tap, tap. I don't want to, this could be a very dominating color, but I just want a nice tint on the upper part of this sky. So I'm going to start at the top, of course, and I'm just going to start with some X's. As you can see, I have that Indian yellow mix with the red, and it's giving me a very interesting color. Got a little pink, orangey type combination. And X's. I'm not going to lose all these little actions here. I want these little different values in the sky. We're going to come back and smooth this out a little bit when we're done putting our base colors in. But right now, we're just coming down and we're tinting the sky with little X strokes. All right. Now I'm going to clean this brush, and we clean our brush with the brush with odorless paint thinner. I have a little can of that down here at the side of my canvas, and then I have a wire rack in the bottom of a waste paper basket or brush beading rack. And that just, I go back and forth with it, and that takes the color off of it. So the next thing I do is I dip my brush into a little bit of this titanium white. I'm just at the end. And then I'm going way over here to my phthalo blue. And I just want to get a nice light blue. Again, I'm tapping this into my color. I just want a very limited amount at the ends of this brush. So I'm coming in here and I'm doing the same thing. See how nice and light that color is? Of course, you can make it any color you want, but this is a nice, this is a nice soft, and we can hit the red a little bit, that's okay. This is a nice soft sky color. And again, I'm doing little X strokes. We'll smooth it and blend it in a minute even more, but I want to have some of these light dark combinations in here, and I don't want any globs of color. I want it nice and smooth. So as you can see, it's nice and light and ready to go for my next color. Now I'm going to clean my brush up a little bit. I'm just beating across that rack, and then I'm going to grab this mix that we made over here, and this is alizarin crimson with a touch of phthalo blue, or green, I'm sorry. It should give us a little bit of a grayer color. That shows you a little bit of that right here, where I put a little bit of titanium white just to see the color that I had. If you don't know the color that you have over here because it's too dark, you can just take a tiny bit of the titanium white and roll it into here, the end, or any color, and it'll tell you what you have. So again, I'm just tapping into the end here. I just want a little bit of color down at the bottom. I'm going to grab a little bit of this titanium white. That'll just even make it lighter. So I've got this nice light green alizarin color that makes it gray. So now I'm going to come across and make my X's again. And you can see how nice and soft that is. I just have a little bit of color at the end of the brush. You don't want a lot of color on there. You don't want it globbed. You're just tinting this canvas. X's. Leaving some whites kind of. You're not painting it like you would a wall in your house. You want some of these little bit of variations in there. Now I'm going to do one thing further on the sky before I put some clouds in here. I'm going to come back in here, grab a little bit more of that color, tap it out at the end of the brush. I'm not going to put any white in this time. I'm just going to make it a little bit grayer, a little bit darker at the bottom. So I come down here, X's, and just tap that out. X's. Now I'm leaving about 3-4 inches at the bottom, white, because we're going to put a little bit of a landscape in there. Okay. Now I'm going to take my brush again, clean it, and I'm just going to lightly go across and blend the sky area. I'm going to keep on cleaning it a little bit as I get up further here. I want it nice and dry, and I'm not scrubbing this. I'm just barely pressing it. Just so, again, we're just tinting this so we can get into our painting. Just kind of preparing that background sky for what we're going to build with the clouds. So I think that's kind of nice and soft. Come back in here. I'm going to take and clean my brush once again. Colorless paint thinner. And I have one other brush to clean over here, so I may as well do that while I'm in here. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with my fan brush So I'm going to come with this fan brush, and I'm going to grab some titanium white. I'm going to grab just, in this case, in this area, I'm going to just add a dot of the reddish color we already had. Very, very small amount, because that color is very, very strong. Okay, I'm going to load this brush up. I got it nice and loaded here, and I'm just going to have some fun with some clouds. I'm just going to tap some things in here. I'm rolling just really the corner of the brush. You really have lots of paint in here. I'm just rolling. Now, as I said, you don't want any globs of that color, that background color. You don't want any of those globs, because if you do that, that's why you had it nice and smooth. If we had that, then that would make it difficult for these clouds to form. Okay. Okay, I'm going to come down here, start building some more. I'm just rolling the brush. I don't want to stay in one spot. I'm just using the ends of the brush, rolling it, building some patterns. And I'm going to keep on coming down. You be the creator here. Again, just rolling. Here, some more in this section. Take a little bit more. I've added just a little more touch of my pinkish color. This has got a full brush, lots of paint on that. These are really nice, loose, free rolling clouds. You want to think like a cloud here. A little bit more up top. Down here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come back with our clean, dry 1-inch brush, and we're going to lightly blend, very gently. In fact, I may go into I'd start with my 2-inch brush in my case. I'm just going to lightly, barely touching. I'm going to barely touch that canvas. I want it dry. I just want to blend. Kind of lifting up softly. End of the brush, this little corner. And kind of sweeping, barely touching the canvas. Up strokes, then across. Very corner of the brush, little tiny circles. And then softly across, up, to get them fluffed, and across. So it's nice and soft. And you have to be careful to blend. You can blend these right out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my fan brush. I'm going to load it up with more color. And find some additional clouds that I'd like to, highlight or throw back in. Come up here a little bit more. A little bit more down here. Maybe a couple more higher. I'm not just staying in one spot. I'm moving. And drilling down. And I'm just using, again, the corner of the brush. Got a few drifters down here toward the base. swirling just the end. So I'm now going to come back with my 2-inch brush and just lightly blend. A few more sweeping motions. Just the end of the brush. And cleaning the end out here with the paper towel. Just lifting up, barely touching. Sweeping and across. Again, can't emphasize enough, it's barely touching that canvas. So you're getting nice, fluffy clouds. A little bit softer toward the bottom. Grab a little more white on my fan brush and maybe just re-emphasize a couple of them, a couple of the clouds on top. And across the bottom. And just a little more color. Just a little more color to the ends. Just grabbing our white with a little bit of our mix, our red pinkish mix. Just the corner of the brush. Top a little bit more. More down at the bottom. Clean the brush. Come back with our 2-inch brush, corner, small little rolling type motions. And the light lift, and lightly across. Just to get our nice soft blend. Very, very soft blend. I'm going to come in the bottom and just add a couple more. Stragglers. Soften, corner of the brush, and just pull across. All right there. So that gives us a super soft flowing cloud pattern. So, having done that, I'm going to come back with my palette knife I'm going to take this dark color here that we made. This was the alizarin crimson, green, with green. Had a little bit of sap green in there too. Basically just a dark color. And I'm just going to cut across and get a little roll of paint at the end. And we'll build a little bit of a mountain here. Just a little bit of a range. Now we don't need lots of paint. We're basically concerned what's going on at the top of this. I can scrape off all the bottom. Okay, so you can see I've scraped off most of the color. It's in the fabric. I'm going to come back with my 1-inch brush and just pull this out. We need this a little bit thinner down here at the bottom because we're going to highlight the mountain. Okay, so we've got that pulled out. Clean the brush. And I'm going to come in with my palette knife. I'm going to make that, I'm going to use that kind of orangey white color for a highlight. So I'm going to just come down over here, cut across, and I'm just going to barely touch the peaks of this. And then I'm going to lightly let the canvas grab the paint, and it should highlight it. Let's see. I'm very lightly coming down, barely caressing that. Come over on this little peak, I'm going to touch the peak, and just pull it right down, barely touching. Let the canvas grab it. Across. We'll do this one to the left. Make him come a little bit out here. Come back over here. A little bit more down here. That gives us kind of a nice reflection of what's going up top. But I want it to break, so I have to barely touch it. So then I'm going to come back in this section here, make myself a highlight color, kind of a grayish. Cut across with that little bit of paint, and I'm going to go the opposite direction. I went this way for the top part here, kind of snowish top. Now I'm going to go the other way for highlights. Every peak you have here has to have a shadow behind it. Okay. A bit of extra white in here. Okay, that should give us some nice definition. And look at the colors that we have there. Now I'm going to clean the palette knife off. I'm going to take my round brush, which is this brush. You can use your 1-inch or 2-inch brush. Since I have this handy, I'm going to just use this. So I'm going to kind of tap in some color at the bottom. I'm just really kind of just adding some darks down here. Just we want some darks so we can show some lights. Now I'm just filling this in. Come up here a little bit with some trees and bushes. I have a big one over here. I'll leave a tiny bit of whites in there, inside these bushes. Again, I'm just adding some black, some darks. And then we're going to highlight them. This one comes up a little bit. Get this a little bit more. Okay. We get carried away with these trees that go all the way to the top of the sky. Okay, we'll clean this brush up a little bit. Then we're going to start highlighting. So we come back here. Come back to our canvas. And we decide you got all these wonderful colors in here. And you're going to just pick and choose some nice colors. So let's start with our, let's take some little bit of, this is cad yellow. So I'm going to take in just the 10, we're going to add a little bit of a sap green to that. I've got just a little bit at the end. Then I'm just adding some liquid white that I have down here. Liquid white is nice and loose paint versus the titanium white. This is a more liquid white. And as we said, the light paint will stick to the firmer paint. So a dark paint, a thicker paint will be the bottom, thinner paint on top, thinner paint sticks to a heavier paint. And that's what we're doing, we're highlighting now. So let's come back into these trees. Now I just barely, at the end of my brush, I'm just barely touching. I'm using the corner just to throw some highlights in there. Now think clusters. Don't just throw these on. Don't stay in one spot and grind away. Just think about clusters. I'm taking a little bit of that red yellow combination, and I dipped it back into that liquid white, and then I'm just touching. I'm not smearing. Go on this side. Grab some more color here. I dip it into the liquid white, and then I just tap in here. I'm just using the corner of my 1-inch brush. I'm going to grab a little bit of red, a little yellow, a little red, bright red, some more liquid white, and we're just going to tap the corner. More liquid white. I've got it into my liquid white, into a little bit more cad yellow in there. And I'm just going to tap some colors. Okay. I'm going to clean that brush. And then I'm going to tap into some sap green. And I'm going to add some more liquid white. Tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to hit a few more spots in here. I'm going to get those going. And then I'm going to take a little more cad yellow. I've got a little more cad yellow here. I'm going to clean the brush. I'm going to tap into my cad yellow, taking a little more of that liquid white, both sides. I'm going to come up here. Just using the corner of the brush and tapping in. And again, liquid white is key to it. You want a loose paint. So just tapping into that. Corner of the brush. Maybe I'll grab a little bit this blue, phthalo blue. So I add a little more phthalo blue in here, tapping it in the end. Again, liquid white. Just get some dark blues, a little bit darker blues in there. It's kind of a nice color. Grab some green. Then I'm going to come back with my palette knife. I'm going to scrape in a little indications of some trunks, stems, to give some indication of some weed patterns down at the bottom. And a few more dabs to break up. Break up your lines. So we'll take now, take the tape away. And that, as I said, gives us that nice small little border. And then if you come with your liner brush, come in here with your liner brush, roll it. I've dipped it into some odorless paint thinner. Come back here and just sign it. Okay. Come back and just suggest a couple of little things with this too. This brush. Okay. All right, so basically that was just a cloudy sky. A little bit of landscape at the bottom. So I hope you'll try this one. Lots of clouds in here. And I hope you look at our other videos. We have some nice watercolor ones on there. And we have some additional Bob Ross ones on there. So enjoying the painting and come back to see us.